For All Faces of Sober Speaks podcast, part two. Part two, we had some technical difficulties with Zoom, but we got it fixed. But Marty, I wanted to say your story was amazing. I definitely saw some similarities in terms of, starting drinking at a young age. Like I said, my dad did the same thing. He would tell me to go to the refrigerator, go get him a beer. And I would, love to hear the sound of that can cracking open. And I lived in military housing in San Diego. So, at least in my mind, I'm thinking it was far away, but it might have been, a few steps, but he still didn't know that I was drinking. And the same thing. And one thing that touched me is when you were telling the story about when you were 9 years old and how you ended up, getting sick from drinking. It made me think back to when I was 12 and I had got drunk for the very first time. I didn't end up in the hospital, but I knew that, like, okay, this was definitely not a feeling that I ever wanted to endure at that age, let alone something that I would endure over and over as an adult. You know what I'm saying? Getting drunk, numerous times. But and that's what, like I said, that before we had started the podcast, I told you that's what I try to do. I try to find similarities in terms of how one story can be somebody else's story, but it's just somebody else telling the story. And so that's what I like about it. I mean, I myself, I am definitely guilty of going to numerous rehabs, knowing that, okay, this one rehab, I know I'm going to go drink. Okay, the second rehab, okay, I know I'm going to drink. The homeless shelter, I knew once I got out, I was going to drink, and then even the fourth time, when I finally got to where I'm at today, I didn't know, you know what I mean? And just like you said, the probation officer, she gave you a statement, and the same thing, my mom gave me a statement, and she told me, she was like, I don't want to bury my son. So that was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you, was there something that stood out at some point in your life that someone told you and was like, okay, maybe this is that time? And that's what happened with me, because it was like, after a night of drinking, at the casino, and my mom, she obviously knew I had went out, and she was like, what can I do to help you? And I was just like, yeah, whatever, Mom, this is just another time. I'm not listening. But when those words came out, that's when it resonated. That's when it was like, okay, yeah, it's time for you to say enough is enough. And so it took a lot. It took me to I guess she might have been saying that to me years prior, but it was like that time it stuck with me, and it was like, okay, all right, I can't do this anymore. Like, I've hurt enough people in my life, and I'm definitely happy, because it's even, interesting that we're talking about this, because, today, I guess, let me see, this is 2018. So 4 years ago today, I was walking across the stage getting my master's degree. And, during that, and I had started my recovery program November 15th of 2016. So it's amazing to be able to celebrate those positive accomplishments during sobriety over celebrating, or sometimes getting those pop-up memories on my Facebook of how drunk I used to be. I like to see these memories, because it's a constant reminder of, like, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's just a matter of how we get there, and can we stay there. And that's truly what's important. And that's the main reason why I wanted to have you on here, because I knew that I love the to have people that have more years clean and sober under their belt, because you're coming from a different time period in life where, okay, this is something that was more prevalent. Then it can still be bad now, but there were certain things going on during that time. And that's where I think that the variety is there, because, like I said, there's people that was in that era that can understand, like, okay, I was right there, doing some of the same things that Marty may have doing during that same time. So that is truly, the blessing of this is to be able to hear somebody else's story and be able to see if there is, some things that I can relate to and others as well, because that's what's important is to I guess we ultimately we all got to fall at some point to to realize, and some people don't ever get up, but when you do have that opportunity, you got to take it, because it might be your last. You had a lot of opportunities. You messed up one time, okay, you got a little bit of time. You messed up again, you got more time, and then it was like, okay, is this something routine? Is this something that you want to be used to doing the rest of your life, or do you want to make a change? And I commend you for doing that, because I'm not gonna lie, I've worked, I used to be a corrections officer in Minnesota in a maximum prison. And I told myself this in 2004, before I started getting into any trouble. I said I would never, ever want to go in here. And the closest I got to was a jail in Phoenix. And that was enough for me, and I'm like you. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really touch on this, and I don't really have the conversation about in as far as religion, but I've had my own doubts and questions because of the fact, like you said, why did you have all these needles in my arm? My thing was like, okay, why was I homeless on the streets of Phoenix? And so that's what I mean. It's like hearing your story. It's like, okay, it might have been one substance or another, but I had that same question, like, why? Like, why did I have to go through this? But I understand now is to, to be able to have this platform today, to be able to talk to good people like yourself, because if I was still drinking, you and I wouldn't be on here having a conversation. I wouldn't even know anything about you. So that to me is what, we have to, as in the clean and sober community, is look at what we have today, regardless of if it's a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 20 plus under your belt. We have to look at what we have today, because that's what we all have, is just today in this moment.
That's it. I've often said, especially lately, tomorrow never gets here, and yesterday's gone. So living today, just living today. I tell guys that I sponsor, rough times come. Just because we get clean and sober doesn't mean that all of a sudden everywhere we go, people are throwing rose petals at our feet. It's just not that way. We still have to deal with life, but we get to deal with life today. No matter what goes on, stay clean and sober, and you'll get through that. Back when I was using and boozing, bad stuff would happen, and I would go get loaded over it. I didn't touch on my brother passed away from this disease. But I used his death as an excuse to get loaded. I wasn't loaded, he was still dead. I still ended up having to deal with that. And so today, no matter what happens, stay clean and sober, I can deal with it, and we were at Thanksgiving, we're talking about standing in chow line, get some fake turkey, some fucked up stuffing, or sit at the table with your family and eat a good meal. I don't have to stand in chow lines no more. I don't have to get up when that bell rings in the morning and make sure my bed's made and I'm standing by my door so they can count my head. I do whatever I want, and that's the gift of sobriety for me today. And I got a beautiful family. I got wonderful kids. I got a wife that's second to none. Everything I got I own 2 coffee shops, and in the process of building a third one. And plus I also work in the oil field, and I'm blessed today to be able to do this stuff. with the background that I have. So, I'm grateful that you brought me here, because I think that, anytime that two alcoholics sit down and talk about recovery, you're having a meeting. And then, can you imagine the people, like you said earlier, will see this and they'll be like, hey, wait a minute, man, I did that too, and who knows, maybe in 20 years from now, you'll be sitting here talking to a guy saying, hey, 20 years ago, started doing this podcast, and here's where we're at today. So it's a cool thing, Kenneth. It's awesome. And such a pleasure to meet you, man.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate, just hearing the conversation, and it's definitely not only inspiring to me, but I know that it'll be inspiring to others, because like I said, it is, with social media, there's people coming from all different walks of life, but the common denominator is, clean and sober. And
Yeah.
I just love to be a part of it, and be able to just, do my part, and, be able to just spread the message as much as I can. Cause like I said, I didn't get here by myself. And so that's to me is what I owe to everybody else, is like, hey, I have to give, my part in this, and be able to say, hey, I can help. Like, I know that it might not have been the easiest way to get here, but I got here, and I'm going to continue to spread the message, because it's the best feeling. I'm gonna tell you, these last 5 years and almost 5 months or almost 6 months, it's been amazing. It's been, definitely life-changing. It's kind of one of those things where it's like you're afraid, because you don't know what this is going to be like. Yeah, you might have been clean and sober for a week, a month or so, but then you start to see the change in yourself, the growth, the different things you acquire in the meantime. I love it. Like I said, I spent today, me and my lady, she was like, well, are we gonna go fishing? And I'm like, man, yeah, I guess. And we went out there, and it was hot. It was extremely hot, but we've been, that was been something that we've been talking about, doing. And we've been together now almost 4 years. And for us to finally go fishing together, it was like, hey, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Absolutely.
And it's just the simple things like that. And even though it was hot, the bugs was out, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, okay, I got to become one with nature today. Not even think about whatever problems I got facing. Let's just focus on trying to catch a fish, even though I didn't, but it still was good. I'm thinking about going first thing in the morning before we get on the road, just in case, you never know. It might be biting early in the morning. So
Yeah.
but yeah, definitely. I thank you, Marty, for coming on. Do you have anything else going on? Because I definitely, what I do in my description, if you got a podcast or any other upcoming events, like I said, you can shoot them to me on the inbox, and I can make sure that I include them on not Instagram, but YouTube. And then that's pretty much it. Like I said, my podcast is real, is for the average people, that really need it. And it's like I said, I could sit here and speak all day, but I'd rather have somebody come on here and then engage and see how we can come together to be able to inspire others with it. So
That's
that's
awesome.
the mission of my podcast.
I'll shoot you a login we have a 12-step meeting,
Okay.
12-step and 12 tradition meeting that we hold every Tuesday night.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny, real quick, I'll make this fast. So about 15 years ago, I had started an NA meeting in this little town in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And a lot of people in and out the doors, and went on about my business. That meeting shut down, didn't work out. And I entered a contest from a different podcast, and actually the Other Side of Hell podcast.
Okay.
And I entered this contest to win a shirt and a hat and something else. They called me up and they said, hey, you won the contest on Instagram. And I couldn't even remember like entering it, but I was like, all right, cool. One thing led to another. We ended up talking, and this dude jumps on and he's like, hey, man, I got sober in Rock Springs, Wyoming one time, and I worked for this rig company and this and that. And we start talking, and I'm like, wait a minute,
Hmm.
did you dating this person? And he was like, yeah. And then he was like, wait a minute, did you sponsor this dude? And I was like, yeah. And boom, one thing led to another. I ended up being this guy's sponsor. He's a host of the Other Side of Hell podcast. And all through social media, like you were saying, brought us together with one common denominator. We just want to stay sober, you know? And so me and him and 3 other dudes started this meeting because we wanted in the sober community, we wanted a 12-step meeting. And man, we just finished last night was our 12th tradition that we finished, 24 weeks of it. And we start over next Tuesday. So I'll send you the login info. And if you could throw it out there, you know, the more people, the better. And if you ever get a chance to jump on, cool, man.
Most definitely, Marty. Definitely, most definitely. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes another episode of 12 Faces Sober Speaks podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Marty, thank you so much for blessing the show. I greatly appreciate it, and I know for sure this is going to help others. And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, 12facessober.com. You can follow me on IG, 12 Faces of Sober, TikTok, 12 Faces of Sober, Facebook, 12 Faces of Sober. I'm a little bit everywhere, but like I said, the most important thing, I'm still sober. So thank you for tuning in, and I am look forward to seeing you guys on the next podcast. Thank you. Have a good night.
Right on, Kenneth. Made a friend forever, man.
Thanks, bro.